Márcia Pires is launching a book called From a Wound to a Scar. Her story of abuse, rejection, and victory is already available on bookstores and through Arca Center. Marcia, you've suffered abuses through your whole life, childhood, youth, adult life. You faced sexual abuse. What age were you? 13 to 14?
I was 12 to 13 years old,
For more than a year?
more than a year.
By a family member? You suffered emotional abuse when you were abandoned by both parents. You suffered abuse in a relationship. And we see that those who were abused usually attract more abuse to their lives. So it was not enough to be abused in the house. When you got together with someone else, you attracted an abusive man. And for 7 years, you remained suffering with abuse in this relationship.
And this creates abusive cycle because with all the abuse that I went through, I developed a personality that was very weak. I had inferiority complexes, and also I entered insecurity mode. I didn't think that after all of this, I could have someone who could make me happy. Our standards fall very low. I thought I was ugly. I thought I could end up with any person that was ugly based on society standards because I wasn't beautiful. I didn't think I was able to do things because every abuse brings a, a very different kind of understanding about the person, who the person is, that we're not going to be able to overcome on our own, that we need someone beside us. And with this, we end up attracting people that also have this profile.
And in this relationship that lasted for 7 years, what kind of abuse did you suffer?
Verbal abuse, words that were derogatory, that would disqualify me.
What kind?
You're dumb. You can't do it. You can't decide things on your own. Everything you do goes wrong. I have to help you. I have to control your financial life. I have to decide where you go because even the people that you choose as friends are horrible. And how did I see myself? I saw myself weak. I can't even choose my friends, or I don't take the right financial decisions. I need to have this person beside me.
And this happened constantly, and the person ends up believing in it because supposedly is someone who loves them and they are talking to them. So I can't, I'm not capable. The person becomes very insecure, even though that might not be true, but because where it comes from, it brings a list, doubts, and insecurity. So verbal abuse. Did you suffer physical abuse?
Physical abuse, emotional abuse, and in a certain way, sexual violence within the relationship because there's a demand of a sexual life. And with this, we don't know, we lose sense of who we are, what we want, what I like. We start living the personality, the characterization that the abuser defines us by. So I would see myself that way. And obviously, the abuser, inflicts this kind of behavior because he is also broken. So, how can you help someone who is broken if I was also broken on the inside?
Were you physically hurt?
I was physically hit many times. I just had to say one word that didn't please him. I didn't have to hit him or say something against him. If I would mention a situation that I went through and he wasn't happy with that, he would slap me all of a sudden. And many times, he even moved furniture. It was my apartment. It wasn't his apartment. He moved furniture. He broke things, and he, took me 2 times close to the window to throw me out. He would hurt my pet in order to make me suffer because I was attached, to my pet. And on purpose, he would hurt that animal. And if he knew that there was an object that I really liked inside the house, that's the first thing he would get to break. These are ways that you touch. Apart from touching physically, he would touch my soul.
In other words, an emotional, physical abuse, also to your assets, because later you had a company that this person led your company to bankruptcy.
In reality, we had 2 stores and 1 warehouse. We had, plural. We had because of our relationship, because in the end, the money was mine. I had a position in a multinational company. So he would be the administrator, the manager of those businesses, and he caused them to go bankrupt. But nothing was under his name. It was under my name. The one who suffered, the lawsuits was me.
In other words, you've suffered many kinds of abuse since your childhood. You were raised by your grandparents. Anyway, up until what age?
23 years old.
23. What you've suffered could fit in 1 to 2 lifetimes. For 23 years, you've endured all that. What we would like to focus now, because your entire story is in the book, those who would like to learn about this story of suffering and overcoming from Márcia Pires is physically in bookstores and also the ebook on websites, or you can go straight to the website arcacenter.com.br and you can acquire your book and will be delivered to your house. You will learn the whole story, not because of Márcia, because it's not about her. She tells a little of her story for you to understand that she went through many things that you who went through or are going through abuse goes through, and she shares all that up until the point that she turned all those wounds into scars. Márcia doesn't cry about it anymore when she talks about this topic, different from others who, when speaking about the abuse, they cry. Why doesn't she cry anymore? Because it doesn't hurt anymore. Why? Because she did something to heal her inside. And will also teach you how you can turn your wounds into scars. And all this is in the book, From a Wound to a Scar, by Márcia Pires, that you can find on arcacenter.com.br. But something interesting about your story, Márcia, it's the cycle of an abused person. There are 6 steps, per se, 6 points in this cycle that happens to someone who is in this vicious cycle. If they want to come out of the wound, they need to break the vicious cycle of abuse. And we would like to talk about this. The first point of the cycle of an abused person. How it always starts. They suffer the abusive or traumatic event. I believe in your case was not just one.
No, it was several. It started with the sense that I was a mistake. I was born in this world as a mistake, so that we already carry a weight that we don't have a right to anything. We don't have a right to complain or to ask anything. And afterwards came the feeling of abandonment from my mother. So I truly am a mistake. I'm a burden for her. And because she abandoned me, I was vulnerable to sexual abuse by an uncle who was like a father. So from that moment, I was like the worst of the worst. I was destroyed. I had no perspective on life. And obviously, I entered an abusive relationship for 7 years. And in this relationship, traumas only increase, like you mentioned. It's a cycle.
It's this cycle, right? You only need one, but as it is a cycle, many start to happen because of that one. So the first point is the event, the traumatic event. Then starts the cycle of an abused person, and it causes this chain reaction. The second one is the person goes into an insecurity mode. Explain that, please.
The fear that it's going to happen again, but at the same time, she doesn't have the strength to avoid it from happening because she feels unable to. She feels vulnerable. She feels dependent on a crutch, whether it's a person, a career, a diploma, and she cannot see that there's life aside from abuse.
So to go into insecurity mode, I imagine that is the person being taken by a constant fear of people, because in the case of a child, they suffer the abuse of abandonment by their parents. Those who are supposed to protect, and they abandon us, so what is left for us? So that sentiment of constant fear, insecurity about our future. So it casts the person into a constant fear mode. So they feel small and weak, and then it goes into the next step, which is to seek approval and attention. So if I'm afraid, if I've suffered this, who will want me? This is the next step.
I'm less. I don't have what other people have. So I have to seek somehow to be validated. And through this process, I'm going to seek attention. I'm going to try to please everyone, even if it goes against my own will, even if I have to do things that go against my personality. I'm going to do it. I'm going to beg the little bit of attention that I can. I think that the best way to say this is you beg for attention. It doesn't matter what you need to do in order to get it. And in this process, you attract more abuse because people detect this weakness in you, and nobody wants to be close to someone who's weak. We try to be next to people who are strong, bold. So when I detect that a person is very emotionally dependent, needy, weak, it's like I was doing a favor to be with her.
Yes, and nobody tries to take advantage of the strong, but the weak. And as the person who was abused see themselves as weak and is in need of attention, so they end up attracting what they don't want. The next step is related to the previous one. They lower their standards because they are so needy for attention that they don't demand much from someone to enter their lives, which is the case of a relationship. They want someone who loves them, and then someone comes saying, I love you, you are beautiful. That is enough for the person to surrender themselves, which was your case in this 7-year relationship.
I saw myself in such a bad light that that guy showed up, and the person who has that abusive personality won't show it in the first encounters, right? I never saw someone who comes, in the first dates and tells his future partner, oh, get out of my way. No, he's going to be cordial. He's going to open the door. And you're so needy that you don't even check who the person is. You like the person first. You give yourself to them. But when you start to notice this behavior, you already clung to that person. You already saw that person as a person to lean on, and standards are very low. You start accepting this abuse as part of life. Every relationship has its highs and lows. Oh, today he was angry. Tomorrow he's going to ask for forgiveness. So you concede verbal abuse, and from verbal abuse you get emotional abuse, and you have comparisons, betrayal. This shows that you're less. Oh, I have to be quiet or else I'll lose him. And then you go through physical abuse, which is a push. And before you know it, he's trying to kill you. And you continue accepting all this because your standards are so low that, they're like, I have to accept it. It's part of life. I don't have any right to something better.
In other words, you submit yourself to things that you could never imagine doing before, that maybe in other areas of your life you would never do it. And it is interesting about your story that financially you were successful, you knew how to conduct yourself in your businesses, you worked for a multinational business, you knew what was necessary in regards to your professional life. But about your love life, you wouldn't do that because of the emotional weakness.
And it came to a point that it's like if I would have developed this imposter syndrome, it's like if all those qualifications that I had in my professional life, the awards at work were fake. It's as if I was living a fake personality. I didn't see myself as that bold person that makes decisions, which I showed at work. I saw myself as a weak person, so I had to dress an identity at work. And at work, at least I would, every time I was promoted, that I was awarded, I feel a little better with myself. But I didn't see myself as that person who had potential. I saw myself as someone weak.
In other words, you didn't believe that you could have that success.
Yeah.
It's as if you were deceiving people.
That one day they would discover that I wasn't all that professional that was successful. We live with that syndrome. Oh, tomorrow they're going to find out that I'm not, everything I show to be. I didn't have this firmness that I show to have because I'm that person that's weak. I compare myself with others and I feel less.
Which means the cycle starts to close. As we spoke, lower standards for you to attract some kind of attention. Then you bring close to you lower standard types of people. Because if your standards are lower, who are you going to attract? Low standard people as well. People that made Marcia's life even worse. So if your standards are low, so to enter your life is easy. What is hard is to leave. Because once the person attaches to somebody who they see as weak, they will take everything out of that person. And it took 7 years for you to put an end to this relationship.
It was a really difficult journey because if I had to say the worst part, it truly is believing that it can end. We live in this cycle, seeking to do something to please the person, but we don't believe that it can end, that we deserve anything better.
And then, with the help of others, the help of God, coming to church, you learned your value and you managed to end this relationship. And then you started your process of healing. Am I right? But before that, you were walking in circles in this cycle because the last step of the cycle is for you to be abused again. After bringing these people to your life, they will abuse you, and the cycle remains going on and on. So you lived like this for 23 years of your life until you found God and the Holy Spirit. Marcelo, who is here, today your husband, 34 years of marriage. You saw Márcia at the beginning. You saw her coming to church in this broken state.
There's really no way a person in their right mind will be happy next to a person so traumatized.
It's impossible. It's as if I were getting married within normal standards, but with a person who is completely debilitated and will need emotional support all the time and will need to be carried all the time. And it was exactly what I never saw, never in Marcia.
With the exception in the beginning.
When I saw her arriving and how she was down and destroyed. She also had the opportunity, sorry to say, but to unfortunately meet a guy to see his behavior, how he carries himself. And I can say that what's written in the book is true. Because normally we see, for example, books by authors that speak about success, but they're not successful. They speak about 7 things that a person can do to be a billionaire, but they are not. And this book shows the contrary.
It's not telling Marcia's story.
It's saying how to get out of abuse, how to get out, and how to recuperate,
How to break this cycle.
how to break free. Because
I am a testimony that she truly broke this cycle.
and broke free, but in a way that everyone who is abused dreams of breaking free. It is written in the book.
So today, you can learn with her story, just as you can come out of this cycle if you see yourself in this cycle again and again, suffering abuse after abuse, regardless of what kind of abuse, because an abuse is an abuse regardless, and people tell you, why don't you put an end to it? Why don't you change? Why don't you leave him or her? Why did you allow this to happen to you? It is easy for those who are outside the cycle to say that, but it's hard when you are in the cycle. But Márcia is showing the way out. So if you want the help, you can read the book From a Wound to a Scar, a story of abuse, rejection, and victory of Márcia Pires. And you will have with this book a path that you can trace to overcome any abuse you might have faced in your life. Márcia, thank you for your story. And I hope that this book may help many just as you were helped.
I thank all of you for the opportunity in being able to give to the people who are listening hope that she can overcome as well.
If today's video helped you and you know someone that could benefit from it, share it with them. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you may do so now. See you later.